Ever get that feeling? Like you've got all these thoughts and feelings, swirling around inside, but when you try to like put them into words, it just doesn't come out right.
Oh,
Like you're
absolutely.
constantly battling to bridge that gap between what's in your head and what other people are hearing.
Yeah.
That's a struggle this writer we're looking at today, Aurora Moon McKnight, really seems to wrestle with in her work.
And it's something that resonates with so many people, right? That feeling of wanting to connect, to share your true self, but bumping up against the limits of language. It's something I think most of us can relate to.
Absolutely. And in this deep dive into Aurora's About Me pieces, which are so much more than just your typical bio, we're going to unpack how she navigates that struggle using words themselves to kind of explore the complexities of communication.
What I find really striking is how she describes this internal battle. In All I Have Are Words, she actually calls it a war that's going on inside her head,
Wow.
which I think is such a visceral image. It suggests this intense struggle to articulate her thoughts and feelings in a way that feels true to her experience.
Yeah, it's like she's constantly having to translate from this rich inner world into like the limited vocabulary that we all share.
Right.
And sometimes things get lost in translation, which can be incredibly frustrating, especially for someone who clearly values authenticity and connection like Aurora clearly does.
Yeah, precisely. And this is where it gets really fascinating because she doesn't shy away from that frustration. In fact, she leans into it. She uses her writing to explore not just the power of words, but also, their limitations.
And that's where I think the fantasy elements that she uses comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's like she's saying, okay, if words alone can't capture these nuances, maybe I can use metaphors, symbolism, even a little bit of magic to help bridge that gap.
Exactly. It's almost as if she's inviting us into her inner world through these really fantastical landscapes and characters.
Yeah.
And within that world, we see reflections of these very real emotions and experiences.
Right, like in My Scars Are My Beauty, which is this
Mhm.
incredibly moving poem where she uses the imagery of scars, physical, emotional, whatever they may be, as this metaphor for the things that make us unique and beautiful,
Mm.
even if they came from some kind of pain or hardship.
What I find really impactful about the piece is how she connects those scars to the idea of freedom. It's not about erasing the past or pretending that pain didn't happen.
Right.
It's about embracing those experiences, integrating them into who we are.
And finding like a sense of liberation in that acceptance.
Exactly.
It's almost like by owning those scars, by refusing to hide them, to be ashamed of them, we reclaim a sense of agency over our own stories. You know what I mean? Like we're not defined by the things that have happened to us, but rather by how we choose to move forward with those experiences as part of who we are.
And that kind of takes us back to this idea of communication, because in a lot of ways, Aurora's writing is an act of reclaiming her voice, of finding freedom in expressing herself authentically, even when it's messy or painful.
Which I think takes incredible courage to be that vulnerable and open with your experiences,
Yeah.
especially in a world where there's so much pressure to present this like perfect, polished version of yourself online.
Absolutely. And that's something that she actually addresses directly in Have You Ever Had Someone Naysay Your Writing? Where she talks about encountering negativity and criticism and how it kind of made her question her own voice for a while.
Which, let's be real, is something that most of us have experienced on some level, right?
Oh,
That
yeah.
feeling of putting your heart and soul into something only to have someone else tear it down.
Yeah.
It could be incredibly discouraging, even devastating at times.
But she doesn't, she doesn't let that negativity define her.
Yeah.
Instead, she uses it as fuel, diving deeper into her craft,
Yeah.
trusting her own vision, and ultimately finding a way to kind of reclaim her power.
And she describes this process in such a beautiful way, saying that writing became her awakening and unchaining. It's like she broke free from the limitations of other people's opinions and discovered this like her own unique voice, a voice that speaks to the depth of her experience and the beauty that she finds in the world.
It's almost as if writing became like a form of therapy for her.
Yeah.
A space where she could process these difficult emotions and emerge stronger, more empowered on the other side.
That really resonates with me. Because sometimes when I'm struggling to make sense of something or just feeling really overwhelmed, the act of like putting pen to paper or, fingers to keyboard these days, it can really help me sort things out, find a sense of clarity.
Right.
It's like she says, even if I get the words or thoughts wrong, the pages will always understand my meaning and my essence.
And that's the essence of vulnerability, isn't it? To be able to share your truth, your struggles, your hopes and fears, knowing that the written word can offer that space for understanding, for connection, even for healing.
And speaking of which, there's this whole other side to Aurora's writing, these like poetic prose pieces,
Yeah.
often with these like fantastical elements that really speak to that longing for understanding and connection. She uses metaphors, imagery, even a touch of magic sometimes, to explore these themes of vulnerability, self-doubt, and this search for meaning in a world that can often feel really chaotic and overwhelming.
Right. She's taking us on these incredible journeys through her inner world, using really vivid language and these imaginative landscapes to show us what it means to be human in all its complexity.
Yeah.
It's almost as if she's saying, here's my heart, but it's guarded by dragons and cherry blossom forests. If you want to understand me, you have to be willing to step into this world and explore.
It's an invitation to kind of embrace the unknown, to see the world through her eyes, and maybe even discover something new about ourselves in the process.
And it's through that exploration of the inner world, the complexities of human experience, that Aurora's writing really resonates with so many people. It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles, in our fears, in our longing for connection.
And that's what she does so brilliantly, I think, in pieces like In the Silence of Your Dreams. It's such a beautiful exploration of the power of listening, of truly understanding another person's inner world, and finding that beauty in those moments of shared silence.
Yeah, it speaks to this deep longing for connection, for someone to see and appreciate the depth of her thoughts and feelings.
Right.
And that actually connects back to her struggle to communicate. This feeling of her thoughts not always translating the way she intends.
Right.
She finds a way to kind of bridge that gap through her writing, creating the space for connection, for understanding, for vulnerability, for this kind of unspoken language that transcends words.
It's like she's saying, I'm not always going to be able to articulate everything perfectly, but if you're willing to listen, to really listen, to dive into my words and my imagination, you might find that we're more connected than you thought. Yeah.
And that, I think, is really at the heart of her message. That connection, even in the face of struggle, in the face of misunderstanding, is possible. It's a reminder that we're not alone, that there's beauty to be found in vulnerability, and that by sharing our stories, we can create this space for understanding and acceptance, both for ourselves and for others.
And that brings us to, I think, the idea of soles of her feet. It's this recurring theme throughout her work.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for this wisdom that comes from walking through life, experiencing both joy and pain, success and failure.
Right.
Aurora doesn't shy away from the difficult parts, but she also finds that beauty and meaning in them.
That's such a powerful message, especially in a world that often glorifies success and perfection. Aurora reminds us that our experiences, even the ones that we might consider mistakes, are part of our journey. They shape us, they teach us, they make us who we are.
And those experiences, those scars, those moments of doubt and despair are ultimately what give us the strength to kind of keep going, to find hope, and to create something beautiful and meaningful.
And those are some of the key themes, I think, that Aurora explores in her writing.
It's like she's saying, hey, I've been through some things.
Right.
We all have, but I'm still here, still finding reasons to hope, still believing the power of love and connection.
Yeah.
And that's what she explores so beautifully in pieces like I Am Hope and I Am Strength, right?
Yeah, those pieces, I think, really highlight the role of faith in her life. And it's not about, preaching or dogma or anything like that.
Right.
It's about this quiet strength that comes from, believing in something bigger than herself, you know? A source of hope and resilience, even when things are tough.
You can really feel that strength kind of radiating from her words. Even when she's talking about really, really difficult experiences, she's not trying to sugarcoat anything, but she's also not letting those experiences define her.
Yeah.
Instead, she uses them as fuel for her creativity, for her own personal growth.
Right.
And for, connecting with others who might be going through similar things.
That's what makes her work so powerful and so relatable. She's not afraid to be vulnerable, to share her own struggles, and in doing so, she creates a space for us to do the same,
Yeah.
She reminds us that it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
That we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And that there's beauty to be found in this messy, imperfect journey of life.
It's like she's holding up a mirror. Yeah. But it's not a judgmental one.
Right.
It's compassionate.
Yeah.
It says, hey, I see you. I see your scars, I see your struggles, and I'm here with you. Let's keep going together.
And that's the beauty of art, isn't it? It
Yeah.
has this power to transcend our individual experiences and create this shared sense of humanity, a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles, our joys, our hopes, our fears.
It's this powerful reminder
Mhm.
that even though we might come from these different backgrounds, different walks of life, at our core, we're all connected by this shared human experience. And I think Aurora Moon McKnight captures that beautifully in her writing.
Yeah, she invites us to explore those shared experiences, those universal themes of love, loss, hope, resilience, through the lens of her own unique perspective. And in doing so, she opens our minds and hearts to new possibilities, new ways of seeing the world and our place in it.
So if you're listening to this and you're intrigued by what you've heard, we really encourage you to dive into Aurora Moon McKnight's work yourself.
Mm.
Explore her about me pieces, get lost in her metaphors, and just allow yourself to connect with the raw honesty and vulnerability that she brings to the page. Who knows? You might just discover a kindred spirit along the way.
And perhaps even more importantly, you might discover a little bit more about yourself in the process.
That's a great point. And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. Aurora repeatedly mentions, what if,
Yeah.
as this driving force in her writing.
Mm.
What if question is lingering with you after this deep dive?
What would happen if you gave yourself permission to explore it? In writing, in conversation, in your own quiet reflections.
Sometimes the most powerful journeys begin with a single curious question.